In an algorithm-driven, constantly connected, AI-optimized internet world, we have seen yet another pendulum swinging in the opposite direction. Today, people are consciously and deliberately putting their phones down to talk to one another, deleting social media, and making an effort to be offline. Now, I would love to say that all it takes is just a little bit of willpower, and we can just stop consuming all of the content that's being tailored and designed specifically to be as addictive as possible by some of the most powerful companies on this planet, but that would mean that I wouldn't be making this video. So this is, I think, actually just the first chapter of a very real, widespread resistance to our increasingly online world. And in many ways, we're seeing this comeback happening for all of the right reasons. However, there is an unbalanced reality playing out here that we need to talk about, because only certain people in certain circumstances are going to make this a reality. A huge thank you to Planet Wild for sponsoring today's video. So if you were like me, you have been feeling the tug of war with your attention over the last couple of years. And it feels like more and more just recently, there is like an uncomfortably unconscious sort of relationship that we have with social media and the internet as a whole. Like I don't think I have as much control over my impulses with content today than maybe I even did like 5 years ago. And this whole trend away from the internet has been reassuring in some ways, but it is also just that, maybe, a trend, right? Because we have videos all over the internet of people quitting social media. It's a very popular category on YouTube specifically. One of my favorite styles of video is where people online give you a list of things that you can do instead of being online. Because the thing is, it's actually become a legitimate addiction. Like, there are addiction recovery programs out there for people addicted to social media. And even the people who invented some of these platforms restrict their kids' use of it. So I've been making some efforts to limit my phone use, and I bought one of these things called a brick. I talked about it on my Instagram. So you go onto the Brick app and you select the things on your phone that you find distracting, and then whenever you want to have access to them, you have to physically go over to this brick in order to get access to them. And since then, I've had mixed results with it. Like, I use it sometimes, but as soon as I unbrick my phone and then maybe forget about it for a little while, I just go right back to these apps like never before. I'm back on it now, but even saying it sound like an addict, right? So another thing that I've started to do is force certain aspects of my life to be offline wherever I can. And this is another trend that we are seeing online. It's sort of like a 90s-ification of your life. So I've bought CDs and a CD player. I have a DVD collection now and a DVD player, and I'm trying to recreate, I guess, some of the nostalgia, but also the more intentional and slower paced relationships that I had to the media when I was a kid, right? And I think this is easier and maybe more logical for people who have children, because when you are looking at your kid looking at a phone, you're like, oh God, this is bad. We should get this fucking iPad away from this kid right now. And maybe it's just me and I'm seeing this because I'm a parent and I get parenting content online, but there's something about kids that is maybe pushing this 90s revolution, but we'll come back to that. But one of the most interesting parts about this new offline trend that we're seeing is that it's not necessarily about health outcomes, right? This isn't necessarily just because people are like, oh man, this is like hurting my brain. Like I feel bad all the time. It's because being online is actually not even cool anymore. And this is actually the point where I realized that we should make this video, because it isn't like some government organization is telling us that we should spend less time online. This is a shift that puts greater social value on lived experiences than digital ones. But it hasn't always been this way. In fact, up until very recently, it's been sort of the opposite. Like, when I was a kid, I didn't have internet. I didn't have TV. I was deliberately kept away from those things by my parents because they felt like it was better for me to grow up just throwing sticks around in the woods by myself. That's not all I did, but you get the point. The result was, though, that I became sort of a socially outcast person in my school because I didn't understand what 90% of the conversations were on the playground, because I hadn't seen the cartoons that they were all referencing. I hadn't been a part of the sort of chatting online that was going on. Now, a similar thing is happening, but kind of opposite, but kind of the same. Let me explain. Have you ever been in a social situation recently and realized that it was just, we're all explaining memes and TikToks back and forth to each other? I have personally found myself guilty saying, this is fine. And I do that like eyes crossed thing. And I'm like realizing that I'm trying to like physically embody the this is fine meme with the dog with the fire around them. And like in the moment with my friends, I was doing that. Like I was saying that, like I said, you know, the dog with the flames around him because this is fine.
Monkey covering eyes emoji.
And look, of course, there's nuance here, right? Because on one hand, of course, yeah, there's the shared experience of consuming content online that we can all use to connect with one another. And I think that that is important as a culture. It is still culturally valuable. But at the same time, the internet is so fragmented now. Our news feeds are so personalized that unless we're talking to nearly identical carbon copies of ourselves in the real world, the memes that we are consuming, the videos that we are watching aren't going to perfectly resonate with the people that we are talking to in the real world. And we now know that social media use does impact interpersonal communication. Like being chronically online fully changes the way that your brain works. And it's actually, we found this, it was amazing. It actually changes the way you talk. Like in some cases, people are talking like online talk, right? Let me see if you recognize this. Hello everybody, this is my favorite cafe, matcha latte, Dubai chocolate. Everybody's been talking about this amazing new place. Like there's an influencer dialect or like accent, like people are talking in the real world like they are talking to an audience online. Like it's so brutal. Now I also found an article on Vogue, which is not a typical news source for this channel, I will have you know. And it's called Why Offline People Are So Much More Attractive Than Extremely Online Ones. Now I actually paid for this subscription, so I hope you guys appreciate this. There was one point that I found was very interesting. They said that there was a Hinge survey that said that people today consider memes as an example of somebody's sense of humor, which makes sense, right? Like in some ways, the memes that you consume and that you share with people sort of represents the online spaces and communities that you're a part of. So it does give you a gauge of where they're at socially, I suppose. Sorry, my kid's freaking woken up, I gotta go. Can you hear him crying? Like, is he on camera crying right now? Oh, right, that's where we were. And it is true, like you can definitely tell. But see, I think you can also just tell when somebody's done something in the real world or they're just talking about something that they did online, right? Like there is an intangible difference and it does create some uncomfortable situations. I'm thinking of one particular instance where a person that I went to high school with was telling me how dirty and crowded India was. And I was like, yeesh, that's a take. Because I've been to India and like you can say that if you've been there because it is a place that has a lot of people in it. But man, to just say like, man, India's so gross and dirty and crowded without actually having been there and being able to like create that personal association to that statement is wild. And I realized that they were referring to the viral videos that you see online of like over crammed trains in India or like dirty street food that you see in India. And that's just an extreme that has been chosen specifically to be shared online because they know that it's going to get a lot of people responding to it, right? It's like rage bait. Like we made a whole piece about rage bait. This is sort of like rage bait. And they're basing their entire impression of India and then sharing that information anecdotally with people in the real world like they've been there and lived that experience. And it just feels hollow. It just comes across as hollow. Jesus, this dude. Like it or not, there's no VR headset in the world that is going to recreate the experience of getting lost on a hike and getting snowed in and having to sleep in your tent overnight and, you know, eating those, you know, dinners out of the plastic bag that you heat on your Bunsen burner in your tent. And I think that that's important to know and recognize the difference. I personally think that one of the best antidotes to our infinite doom scrolling internet culture that we live in today is to participate and protect and invest in these physical social spaces, such as public parks and beaches and public land. And the internet has actually created a lot of online spaces and communities that help us in this goal. And that is where our friends at Planet Wild come in. Planet Wild is a community-based nature protection organization that basically does crowdfunding for the planet. Every single month, their community funds a new project that is helping endangered species, protecting our oceans, or restoring the forests. They document the project with a video report that you can find right here on YouTube. So you can see the impact you're having every single month. We love Planet Wild because they're encouraging exactly what we talk about on this channel, that we need to be a part of something bigger than just ourselves. With Planet Wild, you can connect and chat with a community that cares all about the same things that you do. And especially lately, with all this news coming out about defunding public parks and environmental nonprofits, it feels really nice to have a tangible and easy way to help. So if you want to join a growing community that makes a difference in nature, consider joining Planet Wild. You can give whatever amount, big or small, that feels right to you, even for as little as the cost of a cappuccino. You can already help restore nature. For the first 100 people that sign up using our code Levi10, the first month is on us. So scan this QR code or click the link in the description to start positively impacting the planet now. And there's no catch here, right? You can cancel anytime you like. Thank you to Planet Wild for sponsoring today's video and doing what you do. But here's the thing. There's a whole other layer to this that we need to talk about, which is the fact that being offline today is a luxury. And that was not always the case. This is truly a wild timeline that I think only true millennials like myself can understand, right? In 2005, like half the people I knew had computers at home, maybe. And dial-up internet was still common at that time. It was only the richest parents in my school who had home computers, and it was only the richest kids who got phones. But here we are 20 years later, and basically everybody has a smartphone nowadays, but the people who have all the money are going offline. Now, in our convenience video, we broke down how our consumer world has just made it as easy as possible for us to stay inside now, just looking at our screens, right? There is a lot of money and infrastructure that is designed to keep us online as much as possible, and to try and exist outside of that is getting harder and harder to do. And there is three really big layers to this. Number one, of course, is money. Now, I literally need to be online to pay my bills. I'm gonna say that at least half of my time that I spend on my computer or my phone is dedicated to work, sending emails, writing scripts or whatever, but also because I need to be online to keep up with what's going on online. Like a big part of making these videos is keeping up to speed with what's happening with the internet generally. This video, case in point, like I spent 2 days looking at stuff about offline culture and writing this script. And I don't know how to measure this exactly, but there's gotta be millions and millions and millions of people today who actually can't separate themselves from their devices, otherwise they would go broke. And then me as a content creator, I feel like this is at a whole other level, because I'll admit that I interact with the real world in ways that I know I'm going to be able to monetize for the online world. Let me explain this a little bit more, because I don't even know if that made sense to me, honestly. As I've mentioned before, on my Instagram account, I make more lifestyle content, like I'm talking about my life and what I'm doing and the lifestyle choices that I'm making, because I think it's fun and it's interesting, and it's another way for me to supplement and monetize my online presence. But a side product of that I find is that I'm buying stuff and filming things and making choices based on how I'm going to monetize those real world actions for my online content. And if you start looking at content in that way, it gets kind of unsettling. Like if you're a more serious daily vlogger or something, you're living your real life exclusively for the views and the money that it gives you in the online world. In the movie Inside, Bo Burnham says this line that I no joke think about all the time.
That the outside world, the non-digital world, is merely a theatrical space in which one stages and records content for the much more real, much more vital digital space. One should only engage with the outside world as one engages with the coal mine. Suit up, gather what is needed, and return to the surface.
And for me as a content creator, this is like right on the nose. Like, I feel that in my bones. But I think for anyone, if you exist in a job where you need to send emails, you know, you're on Slack all the time, or you're constantly using the internet to influence your work, you're a miner of a different sort. But this also affects our non-work life as well. When it comes to recreation, the hobbies that you used to enjoy in the real world are now more expensive in comparison to the seemingly free online activities like watching YouTube. We talked about this in our hobbies video. It is a lot easier to go and watch somebody mountain biking on YouTube than it is to buy all the equipment, load up the bikes, take the time out of our busy schedules to go for a ride. It's way easier to follow a yoga class on YouTube than it is to go outside and pay money and go to a studio. I mean, let's be honest though, like the yoga studios are crazy expensive. And it's not just like the big categories of recreation either, right? Like if you want to have physical media, like the idea of buying a record player and collecting records and all of that, it's a lot more daunting when you have nowhere to put it. You need to have more space to own the things that allow you to be offline. Like, look at this. This is like 20 different DVDs, and this is my DVD player. I don't even have it plugged in yet because I haven't had the time to set it up. And I haven't figured out a place to put it yet because it takes up so much space. You can't do that if you live in a studio apartment. What about the CD player I bought? And like the 5 dozen CDs that I need to accurately cover my listening needs over the course of a month? What if you're into knitting, you know, or crocheting or painting or something? All of these physical, tangible, real life hobbies require space. And what do you know? We're in a housing crisis. People can't afford places to live. It feels like all these factors are coming together, but this conveniently brings us to number 2. Time. Maybe you were lucky, let's say, to have all the money to support all the hobbies that you could ever want in the world. But the always online nature of our work today means that we are expected to be online more than ever. I personally struggle with this a ton because I'm self-employed and I work on the internet at the same time. My boss is me and he's an asshole, and I find myself working every single day of the week because the weekend doesn't exist online. Like, your favorite bakery or game shop or whatever is usually closed at least 1 or 2 days of the week, but Amazon is never closed. The internet never sleeps. So if you want to make the most of it, you better not either. The 40-hour work week was invented in like the 1900s specifically because we knew that people got exploited. You know, if there was no space for them to rest and do the fucking laundry, right? But now we have millions of people who are working from home or who are working online with their colleagues in their pockets at all times of the day. And so the line between work and play is blurry to say the least. Like, I've found myself like 4 or 5 drinks deep at a party answering an email that I absolutely had no business responding to at 11 p.m. on a Friday. Number 3, health and well-being. Being chronically online, or even just online a lot, is not good for us. The more and more that the internet becomes a part of our every waking moment, the more that we forget what a truly disconnected life even feels like. And the more that we're learning that the impacts of a chronically online life is unhealthy. And I think we can see this generationally in a lot of ways, because the generation that came after me that grew up with the internet as a normal part of their entire lives are like kind of fucked up by it. We know now that the internet is kind of detrimental to people's mental health. And the reality is that it will require access to time and money to address the health and well-being issues that this new online reality has created. And this is where the feedback loop sort of starts. I've experienced this personally. Like, the more that I'm doom scrolling in a week, let's say, the more I want to doom scroll. The more online that my life gets, the harder it is for me to be offline. You need a really good reason to not bring your phone with you, or just to take a minute to be present. And it's ironic, of course, that I've been interrupted twice in the recording of this video by my kid, because I think that my kid is one of the only reasons that I am as offline as I am in my life right now. And unless you grew up in an internet-free childhood that sort of gave you the foundation to know that it is good to be offline, or maybe you have access to a ton of therapy, or you just have really solid, loving parents who are going to be able to remind you that that world did exist when they at least were growing up, it's going to be very hard for you to fight back on this. But let's just take a breath here for a second, huh? Do it with me. The good news here is that we are resisting this inevitable takeover of the internet. And as much as this video and the internet as a whole loves to tell us that we're all addicted and we're all cooked and we're all losing our minds because of the internet, I think that that's also kind of bullshit, because people are still learning how to skateboard, they're still making art, they're falling in love, they're fixing their cars, they're getting tattoos, they're cooking new foods, playing the piano, sleeping outside, traveling the world, and they're doing it all offline. When you're online all the time and you're constantly consuming content, even if that content is telling you to get offline, it's easy to think that you're just stuck in this hamster wheel. And the only true way to remedy that is to get offline. But I think we also need to be realistic about the impacts of the internet too, right? And social media. We found this great video from Howtown when we were researching this. It's a different format where two researchers debate about whether or not social media is the root of all of our problems. And I'm not gonna summarize the whole video, but basically the conclusion is that we would love to blame all of our problems on the phones in our pockets, but the reality is that it's a lot more complex than that. The whole video is great. You should really watch it because I think it represents a different kind of video that we don't see very often nowadays. It's very refreshing. But here's my optimistic take on this. Not only are people starting to realize that being offline is important, but there is lots of known pathways towards these things. It's not like we've completely forgotten how to be in the real world. We're just out of practice. In my experience, a lot of people my age are dying for this kind of real world interaction. And if you start looking into the hobbies that you might be keen on exploring, you're probably going to find a lot of other people your age doing it too. I just hosted a open house party for my neighborhood to get to know everybody around. And we had so many people show up and everybody was so positive. I think there is this doomerist sort of nihilistic viewpoint that the internet tends to favor. That extreme, oh my God, we're all gonna die, or, you know, our brains are being rotted by the internet, brain rot's everywhere mentality. And I think it gets exacerbated. I think it gets overblown on the internet because that's the kind of thing that the internet loves to promote, right? Meanwhile, the real world is more nuanced. It's calmer, it's not as extreme. And the more time that you spend in that world, the more you're going to realize that you actually do have a connection to those things, and you can easily cultivate space in that world. And you might even enjoy it. Another big thank you to Planet Wild for sponsoring this one. If you want to claim your first free month, scan this QR code or click the link in our description and immediately have an impact in nature and see the results in less than 30 days right here on YouTube. They make great content too, honestly. If you want to see Planet Wild in action, check out their latest project, Protecting Ancient Forests from Illegal Logging, right here in our end card. We'll see you next week for another upload.